Okay, hi everyone, I'm back with another video about my very temperamental Maytag Bravos XL washing machine. I am once again getting the F6E2 error, and I would be lying if I said that I thought it wasn't coming. I'll show you why right now. I just unplugged it to move it, but I'll plug it back in and I'll show you what it's doing. All right, do you see what I'm seeing here? The sensing light, deep clean, hold to start is half illuminated, and the sanitize with oxy. Those buttons should not be illuminated because they're not pressed and the machine is not on. So the machine had finally reached a point after weeks of just barely being illuminated on a couple of these buttons as I've shown. It reached a point where it just started giving me the F6E2 error again, and only after I started a wash. So that to me tells me same typical problem. You have moisture that creeps up underneath this lid when you're doing a warm cycle or hot cycle, and it gets underneath this touch panel, and that moisture interacts with the circuit board and the exposed points on the back. So I'm going to tear into this thing, take it apart, and show you what I see. Alright, so there's just a few screws here to take out in the back, and the process is after you remove these screws, you tip this up and then you break the spring clamp or release the spring clamp that's under here, under this plastic housing. So let's give it a go. I'm using a 3/8 inch drive with a T20 Torx socket. One, you'll never see that again. Okay, so release this, put this over here. Okay, once you have all the screws that are holding on to this metal piece here, and also the ones that are attached to this upper white metal part, you want to slide this forward and then push back. That allows you to tip this up. Okay, so we're going to do that. Close this now so it's not in our way. Tip it up. All right, it's going to fall out anyway. And then what we're looking at are these spring clips here. So you can just use your hand like I am. You can use pliers, but the springs are not really that tight. Well, I take that back. It's easily exposed on this side, but it's not on this side. So I will use some pliers. Those released. Put that back down. And we can fly up on this. Okay. So in here we can get access to the back of our touch panel. So let me bring you in here and show you a few things. All right, so now that I have the housing separated here, let's take a look. So what we're going to be going after is this actual touch panel here. So we had to remove these bolts that you see, to separate the touch panel from the plastic housing. One thing that I did was I plugged the machine back in just to double check to see that the power supply was good. There is a blinking LED that shows the status. If that's not blinking at all, my guess is that you probably have a bad board. Okay, switching out my T20 to a 1/4 inch socket. Start ripping into this. Oh, there you go. Okay. So the way that worked was that you push in on this side, which releases this clip. Don't try to pry at it with pliers like I did, because you'll end up breaking the little support it has like I did. Okay, so small screwdriver for the win here. Or you can probably use your finger, just push in, it pulls apart. Okay, so here's what we're after. These solder points here. And let me bring you in a little closer. All right, so if we look at the solder points without the shadow, you can absolutely see some oxidation. My phone wants to focus on that. Green oxidation there. Let's see, where else? Not really much over here. I don't think these are really detrimental to, or really have an effect on the board as much as these here. So I'm going, look at that looks like it's worn away there. So that's pretty bad. So we'll see. The last time I fixed this, I simply went around to these solder points with alcohol and a Q-tip, got them shiny again, and put it back together and see if it worked. So let's try that again. All right. Just want to keep rubbing until oxidation wears away, and you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but that's quite dirty. And that's all that nasty stuff being removed from the solder points. Yeah, and I believe these right here are the main culprit here. The printed board is actually kind of disintegrating. So I don't know if I have a lot of hope for this fix, but we'll find out. What I mean by disintegrating is there's white space between these circuits, and it's peeling away. I could guess maybe it's from the friction of this, or maybe it's from simply the alcohol, the solvent. But still worth trying to perform a $0 fix, even if we remove a little bit of the board each time. I got a couple years out of this last fix, so let's see if this one works. One thing to note, you may be asking, well, how do you stop this from happening? My plan is to actually, so I'm going to actually seal this off, and I think that'll stop the moisture from getting to it. All right, I'll let this dry out. We'll plug it back in and see if it works. Let's see. Yep, they are still illuminated. So that's not good. It looks a lot stronger on the video than in real life, but it is not good. I don't really mind that. So let me put the lid back on. All right, so let's plug this again. And I'll put this you can definitely use your finger. Let me just check one more time by attacking this with some more cleaning solution, otherwise known as rubbing alcohol. Okay, so it's a few days later. I just want to explain why it's a few days later. Namely, I had to order a new circuit board. The main reason is because this one was too far gone. A lot of the circuit board had been peeled away just by either the corrosion or me removing the corrosion and rubbing it with the Q-tips. So that's kind of, that was a deal breaker. I plugged it back in and wouldn't even turn on. So I had to abandon this circuit board and order a new one. This cost me $80 on eBay. There's a few suppliers that currently have them. This is January of 2025 right now. And I would imagine that there will be more, simply because this is a used circuit board. So as more and more people throw out their washing machines, it should hopefully fill up the aftermarket eBay sites. I'll post the part number down in the description here, but it's essentially W1068946, and it's a Whirlpool part, which is obviously most of washers and dryers are Whirlpool made. So the way that I had to take this off was it was pretty simple. There's a few screws and stuff, and once you detach this and disconnect the cable connecting it, you'll quickly see that it's not too difficult. The most difficult part is dealing with this dial, and once you figure that out, and I'll show you how to do that, but once you figure that out, the second part is really just kind of popping this thing out. They kind of it looks like they have like these little, I don't even call them standoffs, but little kind of plastic guys that help keep the circuit board in line. And they had sort of a melted part or cap that went kind of over the circuit board and held them into place. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some JB Weld, which is an epoxy glue, get this in place and kind of just put a few dabs of JB Weld around it, and then just secure it all. I think that'll definitely help keep it in place. And so I'll bring you in closer and I'll show you, how I put this together in a few steps. Okay, so this is the front panel, which is all fine. This thing is solid. It's pretty much just plastic. And then this circuit board fits behind it. So the way that first of all, you have to take, in order to take it off, you have to take this part off. There's a couple screws that secure it on there. And the best way I found this to put this on is to put the bottom on first, and without putting it around any pegs, and then it can kind of slip underneath that. Because if you try to fit the top over first, it doesn't. You really have to kind of almost contort and bend it and possibly damage it. So that's how that goes. And like I said, there are these little pegs that it fits over. So it's all good in there. And if you're any kind of questioning, how to line it up, you can see where the LED screen is. It matches up right here, and a couple of these buttons as well. So I'll go ahead and start clipping this thing back on. There's two clips on the side. and then I'll start screwing this all back together. We're just going to take a little bit of this JB Weld, mix it together, and a little scrap of cardboard here. And I am noticing now that when I do this, it's going to make contact with this back piece here, so I'm going to let this dry before proceeding to the next step, which should probably be a couple hours. I'm going to try to expedite it with a heat gun, and we'll see how that goes. Obviously, removing this is going to be a little problematic, but since the contact surface on these little plastic pieces is not incredibly big, I think they'll be breakable just like the plastic was that was melted over it in the first place. So I'm kind of just not really picking every single one here. I'm kind of picking the ones that I think need it, and also the ones that are visibly showing that they have a good surface to glue it on. So let's see. That guy. One. Running out of glue. Okay, so I think that'll do it for that. We'll let this dry and come back for the next step. So I'm just going around to the glued spots. I have my setting on pretty low here, about a quarter of the heat. You know, I can comfortably hold my hand in front of it without getting burned. So that's you know, I really don't want to melt plastic here. But this will certainly speed up the drying time of the epoxy. All right, so this is all tacked up here with the JB Weld. It's all nice and dry. After probably only about an hour and a half or so, I think hitting it with the heat gun certainly sped that process up. So now it's barely even tacky to the touch, so I'm not worried about it sticking to this housing here. So one thing I didn't show in the video was that I reattached this. It's simple. This sort of wing just fits underneath this piece, and then it gets screwed down here and plugged in here. I think in the video when I assembled this, I accidentally put these screws in first and not underneath. Well, underneath this plastic piece. So I had to take them out and simply, you know, these screws go in over this, which helps hold this whole thing together. So I think right now what we'll do is I'll plug this in and see if it turns on. Okay, so that's plugged in, so I'll go ahead and plug in the washer. Okay. So, doing nothing initially, but I think I have to hit the power button. So let's try that. And boom, good. So at least I know the new board works. And since it's not throwing any error messages right from the get-go, I'd say this is pretty successful. So what I'm going to do is just button this up. Or I should say, this is some clear silicone waterproof sealant. I'm going to run a bead underneath this and probably around, because clearly what's affecting this operation is the fact that just the humidity or the the water vapor that's rising up is going underneath this lid, and really the only place it has to go, not the only place, but a major part that it has to go is this back hinge area. And I think this is a design flaw in Maytag's design, because this whole tub or drum that the washer is in, it extends to beyond this housing. So there's water literally underneath the housing, and through, because again, if you do a warm or hot cycle, it's going to rise up and then just corrode the circuit board. So I think the next time I'm shopping for a washing machine, which quite honestly, if I have to keep doing this process, is going to be sooner than later, but the next time I look, I'm going to actually pay attention to that, right? It's really going to be kind of tough to kind of gauge, like, what does it look like underneath this housing? You can't tear these things apart in a box store or look at those pictures online. But I think a good estimation would be, does that drum extend beyond, or to the back and underneath this whole control panel section? Obviously, front load washers don't have this problem. But all right, so here we go. I'll get this on and then put all the screws back in and get it going. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do before putting the screws in and stuff is clearly you see that it's still on, so I'm going to unplug it. And you should notice that even though this is unplugged, it's still on. That's because there's some fairly large capacitors. Looks like that got clipped down already. Oh, I'm going to have to redo that. So it just finally shut off. There's some fairly large capacitors on that power supply board, so that hold the power. So I'll go ahead and get this unclipped, and I'll start securing this front display on with the series of screws. Okay, so the washing machine is back in its resting place here and ready to do more washing. Finally, after about a week off. It took me a couple of days to get that part, but now it is operational. As you see, the lights are flashing. I'll set it to a quick, let's see, rinse and spin, and get rid of the extra rinse and see if it fills up. I gotta turn these on. Hot on. Another thing I noticed that the swivel connections on the water hoses were a little bit like rough to turn, so I just hit them with some PB Blaster to kind of lubricate everything, and that definitely helped me thread them on easier. All right, so I'll just click start here and we'll see what happens. Okay, so as you see, it performed as expected. The rinse and spin cycle went just fine. And now I guess I can get to doing all that laundry that built up. I hope that this video helps at least a couple people. As I said in my initial statement here, I never thought that my first video of the $0 fix would help so many people, and I'm glad. And unfortunately, this was not a $0 fix. This cost me $80 for the circuit board on eBay. But considering the price of a new washing machine and the little bit of labor it took to replace that, I think it's well worth it. I think I made it pretty easy to follow these steps, or at least I hope so. And I really hope that silicone that I put underneath there would stop the moisture from getting up and underneath. Who knows? Maybe it's not really going to do anything, but one can hope. All right, so just want to again thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope this helps.